the Craigellachie 13 in particular, that's a little bit of a different beast compared to the rest of the core range in some ways. What makes the 13 different other than that it's 13 years old?
That's just how casts were. Everyone asks about the prime numbers, 13, 17, 23. And that's the core range. And that's just how the casts were falling. So when Stephanie McLeod, our master blender, was holding back stock to create what essentially might be a 12-year-old, a lot of what she liked was 13, 14 years old. So it was already very unique for its region, right? We listed all of its neighbors and it does not really taste like them, especially in the younger years. It starts to adapt as it gets older. So she just ran with it. So that's why, it's legally a 13-year-old. So it's already the bad boy of Speyside. So we just let it live that way. But the 13, I would say it's definitely the more robust of the group. And that's because you're still getting some of that new make spirit quality showing itself, right? Some of that burnt, robust, aggressive. We basically, with that oil fire process, it being heavier in sulfur components, and then not stripping it out with additional copper contact in the shell and tube condensers and utilizing the worm tub condensers. It's very robust. And so I say that in the 13-year-old, the oak casts are still getting bullied around by the new make spirit, right? It's trying to work on it. It's trying to add and subtract things, all the things, lovely things that a cast does. But the 13, the Craigellachie as a new make spirit is still winning, right? It's still the boss of that show. And then as you get into the 17, we do go a little bit heavier on the sherry cast, which, as we know, sherry is known to kind of punch down. I'm in charge now once in a while. So you start to see more of these fruit but still meaty qualities showing up, but not as much of those burnt qualities, those punchy, burnt, peppery spice qualities. And then on the 23,
sorry, yeah, we're on the 13, you're still getting that kind of punchy. What are the kind of tasting notes that you're getting off of it? You just mentioned
well, definitely still fruit, right? And for me, it's what's so cool about the 13 is that the fruit is trying to get out and show itself. I say that it wants to be. It almost is saying like, we are Speyside, right? We have fruit, and we talk about pineapple and apples, and there's a lot of bright stone fruit, as we would say, in Craigellachie 13. But you see that, again, there's this kind of burnt fruit, burnt marshmallow. There's a burnt, spicy, almost kind of attacks the side of your cheeks. Everyone will be a little bit different, but it has an aggressive side to it as well. And quite a few people will think, because of the aggression, think that it's peated, and it's actually not peated.
It's not zero ppm.
Right.
Yeah. Which, is really interesting. And that, I went through a bottle of the 13 kind of earlier in my whiskey experiences, and it was one of those ones where I really started to appreciate it when it was like a third of the way through. I think it is like, there's definitely something that is, if you're new to whiskey, you can get behind it. There's nothing too crazy about it. It's not like if you are not into the Isla stuff, don't let the oil thing turn you off, certainly, because It's not like that, but it lets you know it's there. So really, really interesting one. Any other quick thoughts about the 13 or what makes it different?
Well, I would say that just a lot of people will ask about cask maturation too. And this is bottled at natural color, 46% ABV. So, if you want a few dashes of water or whatnot to lower the ABV, by all means, it will let more of the fruit step forward. If you add some water, it will subdue it a bit. And it's always a mixture for any of our whiskeys in our portfolio. It's a mixture of ex-bourbon casks, first and second fill Oloroso sherry casks. So, obviously Stephanie will pick and choose what's correct for the batch, and it could vary. So we don't always have exact percentages, but I'll give you Holly's percentages for the 13. I would say we go probably 60 to 70% on the ex-bourbon casks. The rest would be first and second fill Oloroso sherry casks. And that's where that stone fruit can be, that sweetness and that stone fruit can really step forward. And you see that in the 13.
Yeah. I think it's neat partly because of that too. I think because you're not a full-on sherry maturation where that's all you're getting. And you're not just completely kind of clean ex-bourbon either. That's, you know, like you said, that's where you get a little more fruit, a little more kind of dimension to it from that, I think.
Right.
So yeah, it's a neat one, and like really affordable for the price range and being above 10, 12 years old. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a steal. And I feel like it's the name that scares people off a little bit. But I like to think that, Lafroig, Bunnahabhain, this is part of the allure of Scotch whiskey, right? You're not supposed to pronounce it correctly, and no one cares if you do, because who's speaking Scots Gaelic, right? Maybe a few people at the distillery, but when you go there too, they're not. We
Yeah.
call it Craig in
Yeah.
conversation. So, uh,
That's way easier.
it's a special gem, yeah, that people are just starting to find.
Yeah.